All right. Hello, everyone. Assalamu alaikum, and welcome again to yet another wonderful session with George. And George has kindly agreed to talk to us again um, about poetry and the role of poetry in the relationship between poetry and community. So today, George will be talking about how this shared experience of let's say, writing poetry and the community and the relationship, how poetry impacts community. And uh, we are really excited to learn from what you'll be talking about, George, and what you'll be saying. So, yeah, it's going to be an amazing webinar. So, George,
Thank
over to you.
you. Thank you so much, Ahmed. Thank you. I'm so pleased to be back. I'm going to share my screen and bear with me one moment as I do that. And then we'll be ready. Okay, so welcome everyone. Please feel welcome. Over the next hour, I'm going to talk to you about two poems. The Mask by Paul Laurence Dunbar and a second poem by Maya Angelou, which shares the same title, The Mask, and contains Dunbar's poem within it. I will talk about their form and their modes of address, that is, how they communicate with their reader and listener. I'm going to ask you to share your own ideas and questions at 2 intervals, and if you feel comfortable to do so, you're welcome to share them either by turning on your microphone or by typing into the chat. But if you have something to share before we get to an interval and you feel comfortable to do so, please feel welcome to type it into the chat at any time. Also, to those listening to the recording of the session, if you're able and feel comfortable to do so, you're welcome to share your ideas and questions in the comments section, and I'll keep an eye on these and reply as soon as I can. There's no need for you to take notes unless you would like to, and but I will be asking if you'd like to take part in a writing activity later on, and you'll be welcome to share with the group if you feel comfortable. You'll also be provided with the PowerPoint slides, the script I'm reading from, the text of the poems, and the activity once the webinar is over. So, without further ado, let's begin. First, I'd like briefly to reflect on the poetry webinar, which I had the privilege to host in June. During that time, Dr. Yahya asked a question which has stayed with me since. If I could just work my slides correctly, sorry. That's it. How do we renovate the effect of poetry on the community? As I reflected then, this is not a question I feel able to answer. Yet I am compelled to raise it again because it invites us to consider how poetry is not only an individual endeavour, but a form of shared or collective experience. Though the poet themselves may write or speak with a single voice, their words may express or give life to the voices of many. I'd also like to draw attention to the response which Fatima generously offered to this question during the webinar. We re-influence poetry on society by making it seen, heard, and felt. We write it on walls, sing it in the streets, and make it the voice of the people, not the echo of books. Fatima's response eloquently announces that bringing poetry off the page and out into the open, the shared spaces of the walls and the streets, makes it available to the process of renovation that Dr. Yahya's question gestures toward. From what I can observe, in times when shared space is being destroyed and made unsafe, increasingly restricted, the promise of being out in the open is accompanied by extreme difficulties, and simultaneously by a commitment to resist. As I see it, the profoundly open, shared intellectual space created time and again through Reconnect enacts this commitment. Resistance happens in how each person participates, whether they attend live or by watching the recordings. With this as a shared space, I hope we can bring poetry off the page, as I felt happened during the last webinar. I hope that this one can pick up from Dr. Yahia's question, Fatima's response, and truly the way everyone exchanged knowledge during that session to provide space to contemplate what it could mean for poetry to be the voice of the people. Okay, let's turn to the first poem, which you can see now on the slide. Before I say any more about it, I'll read it aloud. As you listen, I invite you to consider what you notice about it, what stands out to you. We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile. With torn and bleeding hearts we smile and mouth with myriad subtleties. Why should the world be overwise in counting all our tears and sighs? Nay, let them only see us while we wear the mask. We smile, but oh, great Christ, our cries to thee from tortured souls arise. We sing, but oh, the clay is vile beneath our feet and long the mile. But let the world dream otherwise. We wear the mask. I will note now, as I think many of you are already aware, that Paul Laurence Dunbar's poetry is celebrated in part for voicing the oppression of Black people in American society. This poem is thought to have been published in 1892 or 1895, only 3 decades after slavery had been abolished in the United States, and when its effects, in many ways as now, continued to be felt deeply. Dunbar's own parents had both been enslaved. When I read this poem, I find that the observations I have come out as questions. What does the mask represent? What does it show? What is it hiding? What would happen to the poem if it had been written in the first person plural, as you can see highlighted now on the screen? What if instead it had been written using the singular? Would the poem lose anything? If so, what would it lose? And who is this poem intended for? A similar, though not quite the same question, who does this poem address? Who is them, and who is encompassed by the world? Okay, before proceeding any further, let's have our first interval. If you feel comfortable to share them, I'd like to find out your questions and reflections on anything I've said so far. I'll keep the poem on the slide in case there are words or passages from it that you'd like to ask about or to reflect on. And remember, you're welcome either to turn on your microphone and speak or to type into the chat. So the floor is yours when you're ready. And I'll be patient because it's a lot and we're a little group, so there's no pressure. If we don't have anything to contribute at this point, that is also fine. Just give it a couple more minutes. I'm always worried that you'll be in the middle of typing, and that would be so annoying. If I would hate that if someone just carried on and I was midway through typing. But again, no pressure. If there's nothing, that's totally okay. Ruba. It explores the psychological burden, hiding one's true emotions behind the face. Yeah, I agree with you. It's a kind of strange poem emotionally, I find, because it's very assertively saying we smile, and yet at the same time, you feel that that's the opposite of what's really going on. the truth behind the smile is very different. I completely agree with you. It makes me think about how human facial expressions can communicate so many different things. As the poet we're about to talk about, Maya Angelou, has also reflected, if you don't know a person's features very well, you think that they're smiling, or you might think that they're feeling a certain way. But in fact, it might not be the case, it might not be what's really going on. Okay, I will continue on to say a bit more about this. Oh, go on. The mask can symbolize the oppressed. Yeah. Yes, I think it's so important, because what interested me about this poem for this conversation was the idea that the experience of wearing a mask represents something that encompasses a whole group of people, the oppressed, as you say, rightly say, that it's a gesture or a performance even. You know, I suppose literally thinking about a mask, it's a disguise, it's, you know, something people can wear in a spirit of performance and playfulness. But of course, in this poem, that's not the case at all. I think it is interesting for me to think about, particularly because I you know, my own position relative to it is not to be included in that we. But I didn't include this in what I've written, but it's interesting that Paul Laurence Dunbar's poems, as I understand it, in many cases were read mostly by white people, which I find that really interesting, because this poem, I would say, is not addressed to a white person necessarily, doesn't encompass them for important reasons, the right reasons. But it's intriguing that many of the people who would have read his poems made him perhaps more well known wouldn't have been. The mask represents the injustice in different countries and ages. Yeah, that is the whole point. It could apply to many different situations. Yes, the repeated refrain, "we wear the mask," reminds the reader that this act of concealment is not optional, but a means of survival. This, I believe, is the core message. Yeah, I agree with you. You've used these great words that are going to come up again: refrain and survival. Yeah. Yeah, not optional. Indeed, that's the difference. It's a performance that hasn't been chosen. Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, I will keep going, I think. That's brilliant. Thank you. So, before we turn to the next poem, I'll say a little more about Dunbar's choice of form. From what I have learned, I can tell you that it is written in the rondeau form. And you can now see this term on the left side of the screen. The rondeau is thought to have been invented in France during the 13th century and was once inseparable from a form of song. Both as a poetic and a musical structure, the rondeau is closed. It is typically no more than 15 lines long and is organized according to a predefined pattern, a set of rules. Perhaps most noticeably, it is characteristic for the opening phrase of a rondeau to be repeated at the end of each stanza after the first, as you can see highlighted on the screen now. From what I have learnt, the word rondeau originates from an older French word meaning small circle, hence that circle which I didn't mention. So in this sense too, we might say that by definition, the rondeau has a closed or a complete structure. To arrive at the end is also to arrive at the beginning, to come full circle, to begin again, or simply to repeat the same. As Ruba has already identified, I understand a regularly recurring phrase in a poem or song such as this one to be described as a refrain. The verb in English to refrain or to refrain from normally refers to the act of holding back, restraining oneself or another, either emotionally or physically, to hold back from doing something or to hold back a feeling. The noun refrain, as it applies to this poetic or musical phrase, originally suggests both the meaning to repeat, but also to break up or to break open the sequence. This is partly reflected in the effect of the refrain upon the rhyme scheme, although this is complicated by an I rhyme, that is with an I, that appears at the end of the first stanza. On the slide now, you can see the rhyme scheme of Dunbar's poem, where at the beginning of each line, a different letter of the alphabet is used to label every new rhyme. I've labelled the refrain, obviously, with an R. As you can see, the poem is patterned by only two rhymes, A and B. Notably, the final word of the first stanza, subtleties, is a visual match with the rhyme, begun by lies, in the first line. They share the same spelling, but to the ear it breaks with the pattern. With this in mind, and the knowledge that refrain can mean to break, we might say that Dunbar's choice of form is accompanied by a conflict. We wear the mask is an endless present. As has already emerged from our conversation, survival is a non-optional act of repeating. At the same time, each repetition is also the point when a pattern is interrupted. The poet Maya Angelou, whose poem we will now turn to, seems to take this idea further. The recording that I hope we will listen to together in a moment was created in 1988 when Angelou attended a conference entitled Facing Evil, which was held in Texas. Angelou's version of the mask extends Dunbar's original poem. As you will hear, her performance begins with Dunbar's version before proceeding to add 6 more verses. In a sense, Angelou herself seems to break open the sequence of Dunbar's poem even further. The rondo form, which suggested a kind of holding back, is given over to a spoken performance, which I believe Angelou did not publish in a written form, and instead only recited aloud from memory. Okay, I'm going to now play the recording and hope that it works. As I mentioned, Angelou begins her performance with Dunbar's poem. As there are too many verses to place on the screen at once, I'll bring up Dunbar's poem first, just now here, which Angelou does change slightly, and then follow it by bringing up each of the 6 verses that follow as Angelou's reading, so you can read them as the recording plays. I should say the written transcription I have provided is flawed, by which I mean there are additional vocalized sounds, singing, laughter, the tremor of a voice that is between laughter and crying, particularly in the final breath right at the end, which is not reflected in what you will see on the screen. In these ways, the poem doesn't lend itself to being written down, being confined to the page. Okay, let's have a listen. Now I'll test it first, and maybe Ahmed, if you wouldn't mind, you can tell me if it doesn't work. So it should start playing now.
We wear the mask that grins and lies. It shades our cheeks and hides our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile. With torn and bleeding heart, we smile and mouth with myriad subtleties. Why should the world be overwise in counting all our tears and sighs? And they let them only see us while we wear the mask. We smile, but oh my God, our tears to thee from tortured souls arise. And we sing, hey, baby, we sing, hey, but oh, the clay is vile beneath our feet and long the mile. But let the world think otherwise. We wear the mask. When I think about myself, I almost laughed myself to death. My life has been one great big joke, a dance that's walked, a song was spoke. I laugh so hard, I almost choke when I think about myself. 70 years in these folks' world. The child I works for calls me girl. I say, yes, ma'am, for working's sake. I'm too proud to bend and too poor to break. So I laugh until my stomach ache when I think about myself. My folks can make me split my side. I laugh so hard, I nearly died. The tales they tell sound just like lying. They grow the fruit but eat the rind. I laugh until I start to cry when I think about myself and my folks and the little children. My fathers sit on benches. Their flesh count every plank. The slats leave dents of darkness deep in their withered flank, and they nod like broken candles, all waxed and burnt profound. They say, but sugar, it was our submission that made your world go round. There in those pleated faces, I see the auction block, the chains and slavery's coffles, the whip and lash and stock. My fathers speak in voices that shred my fact and sound. They say, but sugar, it was our submission, and that made your world go round. They laughed to shield their crying. They shuffled through their dreams. They stepped and fetched a country and wrote the blues in screams. I understand their meaning. It could and did derive from living on the ledge of death. They kept my race alive by wearing the mask.
Okay, let's have our next interval. I find that poem quite difficult to listen to, and I think yeah, I'd want to know what you think about it. Okay, so yes, remember you're welcome to turn on your microphone and speak or to type into the chat. I'd like to know what are your thoughts about this performance and what stands out to you about it. And maybe to return to a question we asked of Dunbar's version, who is this poem intended for? And a similar, though not quite the same question, who does this poem address? Oh, Ruby, you said wow. I'm glad you feel wow. I feel wow about it too. I will send you the link to the video of her. It's quite something to just hear her voice though. I wanted you to just hear her. I can't do it justice. I needed to play the recording. It would not be the same if I read it. But yes, in your own time, if there are any thoughts you'd like to share about the performance or lines from the poem, then in your own time, please feel welcome to. I might, whilst you're perhaps typing or just having thoughts to yourself, I think if it's not strange to say, my favourite part of this poem is what would be the 7th stanza in all, but the 4th one on this page. The point where their flesh count every plank, the slats leave dents of darkness deep in their withered flank, and they nod like broken candles, all waxed and burnt profound. I really find that moment of Angelou reading very powerful, and I think it has something to do with the repeated D sound, dense of darkness, deep, because it makes things speed up a little, I think, and the rhyme at that point too, of plank and flank. And maybe the vowel sounds, nod, she places great emphasis on the word nod, like broken candles, and profound as well. I think that she is an excellent speaker in that way. She doesn't hold back in, I think, placing great emphasis. Yeah, the birds keep singing just like the last poem. Despite pain, they just keep on. Yeah, exactly right. And it's interesting in this poem that I think that Angelou brings in the figure of my father's as well, and them speaking to her or to the speaker of the poem, whoever that person might be, whether it's Angelou herself or not. There's that sense in which this keeping on, it goes from her father's to her and to whomever is listening as well, I think. Yeah, that's it. I'll give it maybe one more minute just in case, but even just having some time to your thoughts about it is important too. Okay, I will keep going as we all do. Okay, as a spoken performance, this poem leaves open the possibility for spontaneous expression, such as the vocalized sounds like laughter that we referred to previously. It also makes it possible to use a dialectic style. Note the passages. A song was spoke, the child I works for, and the abbreviation of workin, lyin, and cryin, which you can see highlighted on the screen. You can imagine I really couldn't have done it justice in my accent. These moments introduce the versatility of the individual poet's voice and ways of speaking, but also the ways of speaking among those who share the same place of origin. By choosing to cite Dunbar's poem, that is to refer to it, in this case, quote it directly, Angelou creates a relationship between the two poems which connects them across time. Indeed, the creation of a tradition is defined, as I understand it, by the transfer of a set of customs or beliefs, or in this case, a shared inspiration to create poetry from generation to generation. As well as reflecting a shared poetic inspiration, Angelou's decision to cite Dunbar's poem may gesture toward a deeper kind of affiliation. The word citation, a quote from or reference to an existing text or author, and the verb to cite also carry the meaning to call as a witness, or to call as a witness in a court of law especially. As we approach the end of the webinar, I encourage you to contemplate your response to the suggestion that poetry can be the voice of the people. What would this kind of poetry sound like or look like? What would it be about? Who would it address? And who are its witnesses? Okay, how are we doing? So for the remainder of our time, I've planned for us to do a writing activity. However, we do not have to do that. It's optional. So I will share the instructions for this now, but if you prefer not to do it or not to do it now, you will be provided with the activity in writing after the workshop as well. So I will tell you the steps and then we can see if we want to do it now. I was planning to give you 8 minutes to do the following. More than 5. I think last time when I gave you 5, it wasn't really, it was a bit mean. So it would be to write or type out a stanza of 6 lines, and it does not have to contain grammatically complete sentences. You would be asked to use the first line or the opening words of the first line as the final line, to use the first person plural at least once, or if you feel like it, multiple times, and this includes we, us, and our or ours. And finally, if you feel like it, in one or more of the lines, to refer to an object or to another person. So, based on how many of us we have, I'm mindful that not everyone's been able to be with us the whole time. Would you like to do the activity now? I promise I won't mind at all if you prefer not to, because you could share what you write at the very end. But Dana, yes. Oh, thank you. That's wonderful. So we have a yes. Now maybe that might speak for everyone. Or if not, Dana, and you feel like you would want to, then we should. Yeah. Okay, amazing. Okay, Ruba as well. Yeah, I agree with you, Ruba. I mean, it's not for me to say, but I felt it would resonate with you, and I'm glad that it has. So yes, let's do that. Let's do the activity. So I'll start a little timer and then let you know when I have. Right. Are there any questions I should have said as well before we do that? Maybe not. No questions. Okay, so I'll start the timer and then please go ahead. And as last time, I would encourage you to let yourself write freely, write more than 6 lines, or if you want to at first, or write less than that. See what comes to your mind first and go with that. Okay, yes, Ruba, of course. Oh, putting the questions in the chat box, I can. One moment while I do that. Okay. Yes, okay. Those are the steps of the activity. And Ruba, I look forward to your comment. You still have lots of time. We're not yet at 2 minutes. You're about halfway there. So if you have anything to ask, anything else at this point, I've only just noticed that Ruba, your hand is up, but I think that that could be from before and I just didn't notice. If it isn't, just let me know. And sorry about that. I had the chat open, but not the other part where I could see you. Oh, it's from before. Thank you. Don't forget to breathe as well. I didn't say that. Very important and easy to forget when you're concentrating hard. I have to write it on my script when I speak, thinking of Elisa's session. My advice is have a script and write breathe on it lots of times. Okay, just under 3 minutes now. You have 1 minute left. I should have said, when we reach the end of the minute, you're welcome to either read them aloud or type them into the chat if that's possible and it works for you, or to keep them private as well, or to share them with me by another means. That would also be fine. 30 seconds. No pressure. Ruba, you're just in time, Ruba. You had 10 seconds to spare. Thank you. Okay. You did it. So, done. Donna, yes, thank you. Okay, amazing. So, however you would like to share them, you are very welcome. Maybe Ruba, you'd like to share with us your comment as well? What do you think? Because I understand it might take a moment to put them into the chat. Yeah, please go ahead. Whether you speak or type is fine, either way.
Okay, but I'd like to say that when I play the mic, I can't hear you. So I'm sorry about that because the mic doesn't work with the headphones together. First, thank you so much for this great meeting. and whether or not it's amazing. I'm really into poetry and I find it so, so beautiful. So my comment was about, a reflection of the both of these poems. So, as people here in Gaza, we deeply relate to the voices in both poems for Damper and Angelos. So, Damper's "We Wear the Mask" speaks to the way we often hide our pain behind smiles, continuing to live and study, to hope, while the world sees only the surface. But when it comes to also Angelo's cage bird, echoes are reality too, through surrounded, by resilience, borders, and the constant uncertainty. Our voices still rise through poetry, art, and resistance. Like the caged bird, we sing not because we are free, but because the song is our only freedom. So this is my comment for both of these poems. And I'd like to share my answer for this activity, but after I hear you.
Oh, thank you, Ruba. Yes, I don't want to comment myself too much on what you said, other than I'm very grateful for you sharing that. And I'm glad that you've been able to participate today and continue to share your passion for poetry with me personally, but with all of us here as well. So yes, please go ahead and share the outcome of the activity as well when you're ready. Yes, Ruba, yes, you can. Please go ahead.
Okay, so the lines that I wrote are: we carry the sky like a secret beneath our ribs. Our laughter echoes through broken windows. We gather the dust of yesterday and shape it into dreams. Our eyes reflect the fire and the dawn and the dawn beyond it. What is ours cannot be caged, cannot be crushed. We carry the sky like a secret beneath our ribs.
That was phenomenal, Ruba. Thank you. And I really admire how you've used the image of the caged bird, which I think is a reference that Maya Angelou makes in her autobiographical book, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, to an earlier poem of Dunbar's as well. You've carried this forward in a beautiful way and written something that's very vivid and evocative, let alone moving. So thank you for that. Thank you. If anyone else would like to share via the chat or by speaking, Dana, you might, but I don't want to pressure you.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, go when you're ready. Thank you.
I will put the what I wrote here and then I can tell about it. Well, firstly, I wrote this yesterday evening while I was in the backyard at home, and to say it's the only place that still have something good. Like it still gives me some good vibes, some good energy. Whenever I feel down, I go there to recharge, let's say. And while I was sitting, we have a jasmine flower at the backyard of home. And while I was sitting, I saw like a poetic scene. So immediately I took my phone and typed those lines, and now I just edited a few, and it's a little bit longer than six lines or something. I'll start, I will put it here. To reach the sky, we fly like a jasmine, drifting through the breeze of a summer day, willing to rise, to reach the sky, to see what lies beyond its eyes, but captive to its own deep roots. It turns away from the boundless blue, keeping us away to reach the sky.
Anna, that's also amazing.
And to say I'm not the kind of person who writes poetry, or I don't have experiences writing or participating in poetry. So it's just the beginning, let's say.
Yeah. I mean, I almost don't believe you, Dana, but I will. Yes, of course. That's wonderful. Thank you. I'm so glad you've made a beginning in that case, because for me, this moment when it says captive to its own deep roots, it turns away from the boundless blue. That's a phenomenal 2 lines. The idea of this jasmine, which is both able to drift as a smell, I suppose, partly on the breeze, and yet still is rooted, that's a very compelling image, an amazing image. Yeah.
Thank you.
As ever, I'm quite speechless by what you have to contribute and how you engage with this, like last time. So thank you very much for doing that. Yeah. Is there anything else that people would like to add or to say? Because we have come to the end of what I've planned now. And again, for me, it felt like it went by quickly and yeah, it's always, I really enjoy this space we get to have through Reconnect. I really do. It's a wonderful opportunity to feel like you're connected, which I suppose, yeah, I'll never let go of that feeling, I don't think. So yeah, I'm glad that you feel the same, Ruba. Yeah. Okay. I might just share one last thing because I'd intended to refer to an existing work by Atef Al-Shaya, whose name I'm really mispronouncing, because I understand in the Arabic language there's, from what I'm reading, and I say this kind of tentatively because it's reading I'm only just really beginning to do, but I wanted to share it with you because I felt like you might find it interesting. Let me read out this quotation. So I should say maybe this book is a kind of introduction to the role of poetry in what Atef refers to as the Arab world. And I don't know how you'd respond to that, the vastness encompassed by that term. But he writes, while poetry is foundational for human perception, sense, and indeed civilization in a universal sense, in the Arab world it has also carried socio-political importance as an oral and later a written tradition, performed, shared, sung, and imagined within a symbiotic relationship binding the individual to the language of his or her community. I would say that this was interesting to me because I think from a Western perspective, though it's not completely true everywhere, that the poetic tradition I have learnt about often relies on the idea of the poet as a relatively solitary individual, especially, the writer of poetry is one who sort of participates in a moment of seclusion and separation from their community in many respects. But as I'm learning, it seems in many cases, in many different ways, this isn't the same. And I was interested in that. So if you had any thoughts about it, I'd always welcome them. But it might be just something to leave you with, something you can teach me in the future about. Indeed, it may just reiterate what you've already reflected, really. I think for me, when I read it, it reiterated Dr. Yahya's question. just seemed to bring it home in another way. Yeah, so I think perhaps then we'll bring this session to a close here, unless of course there are any reflections anyone like to make. But everything you've shared has been wonderful, so thank you for that. Dr. Ahmed, I would love to hear your voice again, and if you have any reflections or, yeah.
Thank you so much, George, for this really wonderful session, which indeed, as I said before, brings about lots of creativity and encouragement among our students, and you can see that creativity emerging in the comments and contributions. But regarding this quote from Atif's book, I agree that it relates to the socio-political environment that we live in the Arab world. Now we are talking about a culture that is oral to a great extent. And perhaps our students studied this when talking about kind of that difference between the Western and, let's say, the Oriental culture of orality versus literacy, tendency towards writing or orality. So in the past, poetry was part of the culture. Like people, when they wanted to kind of commend someone, they would write a poem talking about the good features of that person. Or if they wanted to condemn something or someone, they would write a poem to condemn or kind of denounce that act of evil or whatever. So it was core element of that oral culture of the Arab world from the ancient time, and it continues to be really valued in our culture and community. So I agree that it is related to that socio-political kind of environment that we live in the Arab world. So much fun, so much creativity, so much to learn, and I like the contributions the students made, in particular Dan and Ruba. So thank you so much.
Oh, it's
If you
my
have any
pleasure.
comments, guys, please.
Yeah, let's have a look. Dr. Yahya, similar poetry like The Wasteland and Paradise Lost, be back as a message. So I think maybe if I understand you, you're asking whether they share this kind of relationship between the individual and the community. Whereas T.S. Eliot and John Milton, I think, yes. So, I mean, that's such a good question. I think maybe it would be more true of John Milton, because as I understand Paradise Lost, it's very much engaging with questions of faith and belief, religious belief. The Bible is a real major reference and kind of guiding structure for that piece of work. And it does sort of address questions of humanity on a universal level, or that's what it tries to do, as I understand it. The Wasteland is a much harder one, I find. I had to study that poem once, and I must say I found it really difficult because I think Eliot relies so much on what his reader may have already read, in the sense that he's often just relying on those citations to other texts, and that's part of a major part of how the poem operates. So I don't know about that one. I personally felt when I read it that I felt more excluded by that poem than I did able to participate in it, which was unlike the John Milton. Yeah, but I'd be interested to know what you think about it. Yeah, exactly. Milton's portrayed Satan, etc. Exactly. So it feels like it's trying to be a much sort of more universal level of story, or yeah. And Ruba, you agree about Eliot? Yeah, I feel that maybe it's just an assumption I have of him, or of the period of time when he was writing. There's something slightly elitist about it, and I say that cautiously, but that was just my personal feeling, I suppose. Thank you for that. It's a really interesting question. Yeah, I love both The Wasteland and Paradise Lost as well. I'm so glad. Yeah, he depends a lot on the background knowledge of the reader. That's what it is. I think that's what makes me feel like it's slightly elitist, you know. Whereas these poems we've looked at today, I feel like there's, you know, I haven't studied them, but you can form quite an instant relationship with them. And maybe that is something to do with what Ahmed described, this difference between orality and literacy. When I think Angelou's reading this poem, what's conveyed by the way she says it, there's so much that's conveyed. And I think it's possible to receive that if you're able to listen, you know, that which is different. It's quite different, I guess, than Eliot. Yeah, that's so interesting. And then Ruba, it shows how poets are often seen as leaders, truth tellers, or freedom fighters. Oh, I think she's had to lose connection. That's such a shame. Yeah, I'll say in case she catches the recording. Yeah, leaders, truth tellers, or freedom fighters in your culture. That's a good way to end, I think, as well. The role of the poet. Yeah. I'm really grateful for this session. It was really wonderful.
We are really grateful, George, for your time. I like the way how you present things in a seamless way. It's very simple, but really effective. That really touches the heart, and we get that message that you want to convey. So thank you so much for your time, and sorry for the inconvenience that we cause in terms of connectivity.
Not at all. No, not at all.
And sorry for the students as well, because we're a bit late in sending you the Zoom link. So our apologies. We hope to see you soon. So we have a session next week. Stay tuned for that. We'll send an announcement. We have a session on Saturday next week, and then Dr. Hassi will come again the week after talking about mixed methods. So stay tuned. We'll keep in touch, and yeah, as usual, stay safe. Hopefully, fingers crossed for good news, positive news in the near future. Hopefully, we'll have an end to this ongoing war. And thank you so much, George, for the time. Thanks, Mele, for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Yahya, and thanks, everyone. And hopefully, we'll see you soon in a new webinar. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.